I'll be honest, these headphones are only on to serve the purpose of keeping my hair in place because it's just not cooperating today. Hey ladies and gentlemen of the internet, today we're going to be talking about how I manage my multiple businesses. An important thing to note right off the bat, a lot of this is both preparation and intent that has been designed, planned, learned over decades, like quite literally decades of my career, of my life, in which I had to learn both the hard way through failures and, successes that I've hopefully achieved over some amount of time. And here's the thing right off the bat, I actually don't recommend doing this for most people. I know this is envied at some level and essential in certain aspects. And in not so recent times, you had people like Elon Musk who exemplify this. But if you're starting out, the most important takeaway I want to say right from the start of this video, before we even get into the weeds, is to try to focus first on one main business, one main idea, one main stream of income if you're just starting out, then worry about building out afterwards. Look, I've been there. I wanted that hustle, that grind. I wanted to do a bunch of different things, and that's to a T who I was for a long time in my career. But you learn quickly that if you don't have that good foundation, then all the rest doesn't matter. So take this as a guide and apply it to whatever situation that you may be in. All right, with that, let's jump in with number one. To understand how I manage multiple businesses, you have to understand at some level the businesses in themselves. So let's just kind of keep this from simplification's sake. I currently am in charge of or manage in some respect 3 main businesses. So first and foremost, by order of operations in terms of when they started, digital dojos. Technically nowadays this is a sole proprietorship, but this is my content creation business. This is something that I was a part of back in the day through some colleagues, eventually went independent. This is everything I do from like technology reviews, tutorials, everything I do on the Digital Dojo's YouTube channel, Digital Dojo's website, so on and so forth. All this stereotypical like influencer revenue streams, advertising, affiliate programs, sponsorships, everything I do through that business and for that technology content is housed under Digital Dojos. Next up is ASC Cap. This is technically a LLC and more specifically an umbrella LLC. This is where it gets a little complicated, but essentially what that means is it's a business which houses a bunch of other businesses and passion projects of mine. So for example, this is where I do some of my investing under. I've always said this, big picture, I've wanted to move into the investing space. Think angel investing, think VC. I wanted to take the resources and the, over time, the things I've learned, and obviously that goes hand in hand with like the money earned from these previous businesses, and contribute to other people, startups, and spaces in which I believe in to kind of push the needle forward there. And this is my baby steps to doing that. Additionally, it's also built out for things like my lifestyle content. I've made a conscious effort to want to branch out of the tech content creation space and do things like lifestyle content. And whether and when the time happens when I monetize things like this YouTube channel, for example, that's going to go under ASC Cap. Last but not least is Network Right. This is my main focus, my main business that I'm a part of at the moment. This is our IT service company. I am a partner alongside 2 of my partners and co-founders. We are essentially modern IT for the modern age. That's how we describe it. We're an external provider of, in this case, IT services.
At Network Right, we truly understand how IT impacts a growing company. Whether it be onboarding, help desk, or cybersecurity, Network Right delivers an internal IT experience that actually is human.
We help companies, particularly high-growth startups, build and scale their IT infrastructure. Again, this is where my main focus, my time, my dedication is spent at the moment. Okay, so with that, you have a rough idea of the businesses I'm involved in. Let's talk about how I manage across those 3. With number 2, time management and prioritization. I think this goes without saying. You can't manage multiple businesses if you don't have at least a degree of time management and an idea and understanding of prioritization. Like I just mentioned earlier, Network Right is where I spend majority of my time and focus now at the moment, because that is the business that is the highest priority. It's the one that it's scaling the most. It has the most potential to grow. And even in the last 3 years, we've gone from a company of 2 to 3 to now 16 people. We have a headquarters here in San Francisco. There's a lot of potential even now early on where we're going, and I just really believe in the model and the idea, and excited to see that in the team scale. I take this idea of what's known as Pareto's principle. A lot of like 20% of your effort tends to contribute to 80% of your results. And I apply that same method across my businesses, right? Like, where is my time best spent on these businesses? So again, like I said, right now for Network Right, Monday through Friday, I'm at our office for Network Right here in San Francisco. That's where my time is best spent. So on average, that's like 40, 50 plus hour work weeks. Obviously, it's a little skewed. I'm like a partner, I'm a founder. Outside of my day-to-day functions, I'm obviously contributing a little bit more for internal operations and so on and so forth. So I'd say like it's a little bit more than an average work week that I spend for Network Right. But yeah, let's just cap it at like 40 to 50 hours on average. Now, with that, I have to fill time outside of that, obviously. And that's where I get to contribute to my other businesses. That means sometimes earlier mornings, sometimes that means later nights. That means after I get home and decompress and have dinner and do all the kind of basic human stuff, I try to get the 2 to 4 hours where I can, right? To contribute and, make progress on certain aspects for my other businesses. That also means for me personally, again, not recommending this, my weekends get involved in a lot of this, and to contribute to said passion projects and or other businesses, I plan around some of my weekends. So sometimes that means like I'm going to take a couple hours on Saturday, a couple hours on Sunday to shoot that product review or to get that script ironed out, to get the B-roll shot for digital dojos, for example. And the idea being that where I can kind of get time to contribute to those other businesses and where I see fit, like I try to plan around, again, my typical work week of Network Right. At the end of every week, I kind of ask myself these 3 questions. What am I going to do this week? When am I going to do it? And what's the most important and or fulfilling task I need to tackle for each of those businesses? Now, that last question, what I mean by that is, what is the most effective or important task I need to get done is one aspect. But the reason I add that what's the most fulfilling is because nowadays, outside of Network Right, for digital dojos, for example, I get to pick and choose the content I want to do. I'm no longer really doing the content like for what's going to get the most views, what's going to get the most money, what's going to get the best sponsors. I'm doing it because I have the full creative freedom to say like, this is not my main focus in business at the moment. So I have the freedom to ultimately do whatever I want to do and not have to worry about all those other, aspects. So I always ask myself, what's the thing I really want to do that might not be, again, the most successful, but the most fulfilling for me personally and creatively? Because I think by doing that, it allows me to be happier, more productive for my other businesses like Network Right, where a lot of my time is being spent. So I think that's an important question that I always ask myself at the end of the week. All right, number 3, outsourcing what I don't know and where I am not good at. This is super, super important. This is something I had to learn over time. This is not something that I just knew. It was the complete opposite. And I think for many solopreneurs or entrepreneurs starting out, you kind of learn to wear multiple hats inherently. And you just kind of have to learn to do everything. Like when I had to start my first LLC, when I had to, do like the graphics and do some of the website stuff on the back end. As you scale and as I scaled over time, I learned that like I as an individual am only so scalable, right? Like there's limits and it's better to kind of learn what you don't know and outsource that effectively. Sometimes that means things like editing from the content creation standpoint, which I've had to do in the past for certain businesses. For me, a big part of that was finance and legal. It's just not something I was the greatest at, and it's better to kind of get somebody through financial services, a fractional CFO, an accountant, what have you, to handle those sort of things to get you your best, just get your time back and not have to worry about all those like nitty gritty. Even now at Network Right, I use my resources, my team, and I delegate as needed. I manage 5 individuals and I utilize that team effectively to ensure that I'm not just, is there times where I can learn things and put my time towards it? Yes, but is my time probably better spent elsewhere? Also, yes. So you got to learn to admit you don't know what you don't know and understand where your time may be best suited. The question I always ask recently from a book I read, are our best resources on our biggest and best opportunities? And that's a question I ask across multiple businesses now that I'm a part of. Are our best resources on our best and biggest opportunities? And if the answer is no, then we got to kind of rewire things to figure that out. All right, number 4, creating an ecosystem or empire that feeds off one another. For me personally, individually, my specific scenario and situation of these businesses, This is what's allowed me to manage multiple businesses over time effectively. This is not going to apply to everyone else here. Some aspects maybe, but for me personally, what I mean by this is I've had the opportunity and the intent and preparation over time to create an ecosystem and empire that kind of stacks off one another. What I mean by that is, for example, I came into this tech space in 2006. I was creating content on YouTube as a pure hobby, and a lot of my businesses inherently over time have bled into one another and has allowed me to contribute to each in some aspect. So again, going back to content creation, it was all about technology, sharing my opinions, my thoughts in technology. Now, when I started Network Right with my colleague and business partner, it was about how do we use technology and enable technology to allow people to do their best work? How do we build these infrastructures in place? How do we get them the proper procedures to help scale and grow their companies through technology? So I spend a lot of time now at Network Right, again, building corporations and startups' IT infrastructures. A lot of my job is designing and understanding how, again, this technology affects the workforce and sets them up for success. And I get to spend a lot of time inherently with technology. Obviously, I get to see a lot of the latest hardware because a lot of these startups use it. I get to see a lot of the latest SaaS apps and infrastructure behind that. And that in return allows me to then go over and create content around it for businesses like digital dojos. It allows me to then go and create content for Network Right, which is something that we're exploring right now. And then it allows me to even furthermore create content for this lifestyle channel. I can then give business feedback. I can give insights and share that. So what I mean by that is it's like I'm always kind of feeding on one another. Even furthermore, Network Right, from an investing perspective, gave me an inside view to a lot of how these startups work and operate. And it got me exposure to contacts I would have never had otherwise. So again, I've always tried to build my career, my businesses in which they compound off one another and they allow me to succeed in some aspect off of, again, previous experience and all kind of play into one another. Again, this is the same thing I did when I was doing content creation for a living, right? I did videos on things and products. I got affiliates to support some of the products I was talking about. And if you bought it, I would get a contribution or a portion of that income. I got paid sponsors. Content creation is like a really good example of where I learned this because like you have to learn how to build on your brand and kind of continuously grow that. You can't just kind of do this one thing forever. It's like nowadays where I think it's more commonplace for people to want to be a content creator. It's why I say, for example, like you can nowadays not be a streamer without also being a YouTuber. Like if you were a streamer, to be successful, I mean, outside of it, like doing it as a living or a career, you have to be a content creator. Whereas a YouTuber nowadays doesn't necessarily need to be a streamer, right? The business aspect and implications off that, you want to set yourself up for success. If you were a streamer and you're already streaming, making content, doing these 4, 5, 6 hour streams, then you might as well package that into a YouTube video. You might as well push that out through social media. You might as well, have this compounding interest that helps you succeed in that business. So that idea of creating an ecosystem that feeds off one another can be applied to one business. It can be applied to multiple businesses. It's just something I truly believe in. All right, last but not least, actually, this is a twofer here. Organization and compartmentalization. This kind of goes hand in hand with time management here. You have to, at some aspect, be organized to kind of handle multiple businesses and multiple aspects because depending on the businesses at scale, there's a lot of decisions that sometimes need to be made. There's a lot of different deadlines, a lot of different projects. So for me, that means like just being generally organized in the sense of like having my calendar built out, having my to-do lists, having a system that works for me so I can meet deadlines and understand where the priorities for each of these businesses. That also means having the ability to do a lot of context switching, having to understand different environments. At Network Right alone, I work with 20 plus clients in my portfolio. I have to do a lot of context switching, but I learned a lot of that from managing and growing multiple businesses over time because you kind of just have to have an idea of where things are going on in certain aspects of each of those. I don't think you need to have your hands in on every little thing. I think that's like either micromanaging or being a little bit too involved in every business. At some point, you need to, again, learn how to outsource, learn how to hire others to help you operate more effectively. But context switching is important. Lastly, compartmentalizing. My roles, my responsibilities in each of these businesses. You need to learn how to compartmentalize that mentally and emotionally, I think, as well. An example for like investing, and nowadays a lot of my approach to investing is playing the long game. I'm not interested in this kind of like quick and short returns anymore. I'm looking for opportunities in which I can help early and or support something over time that I believe in. So a lot of what that allows me to do is like when I make certain investments in whatever space and things like crypto or what have you, like I'm doing that with the intention of like, I'm not going to be checking this every day. It's not something I'm going to worry myself over. Like there's no point. I'm not day trading. This isn't a thing where I'm checking my portfolio every single second of the day. I'm making these decisions with long intent of returns over time. So again, that allows me to not be as involved on a day-to-day basis. Emotionally wise, I think you have to be able to understand the nuances involved in your limitations. I think that's very important. As much as I wanted, for example, when I started Network Right, to be able to do both content creation full-time and Network Right, I had to understand where the biggest opportunity was, not in the moment, but at scale. And I had to let go of certain things. That meant kind of sacrificing certain aspects of the businesses. That meant I knew Digital Dojos was going to suffer. That meant other aspects and projects I was working on probably were going to get shelved and or, shut down. And that's what leads me into the kind of additional tip and getting back to where this all started is focus. You have to be willing to sacrifice in some aspect time, and if not more importantly, the now for the future. The kind of smaller opportunities for the bigger potential. When you're running multiple businesses, like you have to understand that inherently, because that question in itself might lead you from managing multiple businesses to managing one business or what have you. I think a lot of my early like entrepreneurial journey was like starting a bunch of things I wanted to do just because I wanted to do it for the sake of doing it. And I was so like eager and envious, in which I think if I cut a lot of that stuff down and focus on the core, principles and what I was good at, those things probably would have grown bigger and, in terms of size, scaled way more efficiently than if I wasn't just across multiple avenues and multiple businesses and multiple projects, right? In the content space, I had to just accept, again, like certain aspects were going to suffer when I started Network Right a couple years ago. It was going to be a change of pace for me, all these different factors. But the most important thing there was being able to see the bigger version, and the outcome of things was key, again, not just to managing multiple businesses, but a successful business. There has to be a time, as much as you want to do a lot of things or multiple things, where you need to just reel it in and get a good iteration and foundation of something before, again, you develop further. And that's always been my biggest takeaway. And in doing that, it's allowed me to build more successful businesses, more successful foundations in my life and my career. And then it's allowed me the time, the resources, so on and so forth, to then go and pursue these other projects, these other ventures, as I see fit. So I know this is a long one, but I do genuinely hope it's helpful for some of you out there. I hope it gives you some insight into how some of this works and my current thought process and how I approach things. It's not a one-size-fits-all. A lot of people are in different situations, different businesses, different spaces, but hopefully it can serve as some sort of guideline for you. If you found it helpful, be sure to hit that thumbs up video, consider subscribing, and as always, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching.